I'm passionate about, that young people are passionate about, and I think they will latch on to these ideas.
The problem is, like most movements, most opposition, most big movements, I was involved in Occupy, and that was very, if it wasn't manipulated from the outset, it was certainly manipulated from the first few weeks, and it became fragmented. Originally, Occupy was about outrage against the whole financial system, which had created austerity and all the other things. But it very quickly morphed into anti-capitalism, climate change, and all these subsidiary issues. XR is if you like, the child of Occupy, and its primary focus is to enable them to, if you like, isolate opposition, divert opposition, and also create conditions for draconian crackdowns on people who protest for freedom. So whilst it's good in a way that Extinction Rebellion is energising young people, they've been brainwashed in schools about climate. I mean, if you look at schools textbooks today compared to when we were kids, it is a totally different world. I mean, they normalise chemtrails. When we were kids, and I learned to fly an aeroplane when I was quite young, and so I've been studying clouds and sky for a long time. These chemtrails only started in the 90s. They never existed before. And you look today, and it is very rare that you get a clear day. You see this haze? That was all chemtrail shit. That's more of a threat to our future than CO2, which is
Exactly what I'm talking about.
CO2. If CO2 dropped below 150 parts per million, it's currently about 400. Everything would die. No plants would grow, we'd all die. So this demonisation of carbon is a bit like the demonisation of other peoples through coronavirus. Basically, we need human contact, we need socialisation, we need, we are social creatures. And what these masks, social distancing, hand washing, all of these things, they're reminiscent of initiation rituals into satanic cults. This is all about turning people into initiates for sacrifice. And that's a much deeper argument, which...
I know all about it. I know it's there.
Yeah.
I know it's there.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's very clever.
This sort of thing existed 40, 50 years ago.
Well, this ideology actually dates back to 458 BC.
It goes back. You can go and read the Bible. It's all there. So everything's in the Bible.
Predates the Bible. Yeah.
It isn't something that's just come about.
There's a really good book by a chap called Douglas Reed called The Controversy of Zion, which is well worth reading. Because he wrote immediately after the war, so in the 50s, the Second World War, and he maps out the thread of this ideology, which is not the same bloodline. It's gone through different bloodlines. From 458 BC, when the Levites
You'll have to get a stamp, bro. Your mate is going to get a stamp.
Yeah, you're right.
I'll bring you one next week.
The Levites basically created this, or documented this philosophy of destruction, or ideology of destruction, which was then taken on by the Pharisees, then by the Talmudists, and today it's the Zionists. And that thread of destruction runs all the way through this, and it's not Jews, it's
Of course it's not.
because there were many...
They are wonderful people. The Orthodox Jews, people who are going about doing their daily business, going to work, they're not the issue. You hit the nail on the head. But have you noticed now, you're not allowed to say the word Zionist? And why is that? You've got to ask the question, why is that? Why are they saying now, if you put a comment on your Facebook, whatever, use that word, you can be banned now. So, what I take from that is they're frightened.
Well, you know where
And that's why this...
anti-Semitic
Yeah.
Bolshevik revolution.
Well, that's another debate that can go off into light years.
Do you know who funded the Bolshevik revolution?
I do, yeah. I believe it was...
Sophisticated and complex website readily available if it wasn't planned. I mean,
You
you don't have to dig very deep to realise that most of what we've been told has no foundation in reality. You've only got to look at 9/11, and everybody gets into arguments. Were there planes? Were there no planes? Were there nukes? This, that, and the other. All you have to do is look at Building 7. It came down in a classic controlled demolition. If that was the case, it would have had to have been wired in advance. That meant it was an inside job, so the whole narrative falls apart. The whole climate change narrative hinges on one plain fact, that CO2 heats the atmosphere. As the sun reflects off the earth, it gets trapped in the clouds, CO2 ostensibly, and reflects back to earth. But they've now, over the equator, they've measured the temperature and there's no evidence of that happening. So everything else about glaciers melting, Greenland ice, all of that is a mere sideshow, because the fundamental theory has no foundation in fact. And the fact that COVID is a similar lie, it relies on our conditioned and trained understanding of viruses for over a century. In the Spanish flu, the 20 million people who died were all subject to vaccination programs. That's why they died. And the scientists hid that. But there's a book called Virus Mania by one of them is called Torsten Engelbrecht. But that explains that our immune systems are far more complex. So all of these so-called pandemics, BSE, SARS, HIV, AIDS, coronavirus, although this was 2007, so it was before coronavirus, all of these are far more complex, and they're just money-making machines. So, the pharmaceutical industry makes a fortune, and it also dovetails in with the eugenics movement, which was very popular in this country, in America, all over Europe. And then in the 1930s, eugenics was the big thing, building on this Malthusian proposition that one, we're overpopulated, which we're not, and two, that they could manipulate genes in order to create a better human stock, because we're farmed. So they wanted to promote reproduction of the upper classes and forced sterilisation on the criminal classes, the low intellect, the disabled. So that was all discredited because Hitler and the National Socialists were conducting the same sort of ideas. So suddenly eugenicists became very unpopular. So what they did, they went underground and they came out to the International Planned Parenthood.
It's covered a lot of topics here, your friend.
Planned Parenthood, all of these family planning associations, they're all eugenicist organisations, so they didn't go away.
Hold that thought there. I'm glad they brought out the topic.
Why is that?
Because it's woken people up.
I think you could be right. I think
they're the hand of the creator.
I don't know how old you
are.
I grew up I was a teenager in the 60s, and I would say that we're the luckiest generation, but most of the people in my generation have squandered their inheritance in terms of the understanding that we could have developed, and basically we screwed it. All those so-called hipsters who started progressive art, progressive music, all of the sort of creativity that came out of the 60s, they all sold out to money power. They all sold out to Saatchi and all these foundations. So they, U2, Bono, an ambassador for the criminal UN. All of these people, they've been sucked into the system. But there are still a few that are outside that system. But, things are going to get a lot worse unless people wake up, and you're right.
It's the younger generation, I think, you've got to wake up. This generation and the one that's to come. These are the people who will change this system. And all you've got to do is hang fire, carry on doing what you're doing, and eventually. And you can see this with Extinction Rebellion. I mean, I followed them for 2 weeks. The young people that were latched onto this group, who were concerned about water like I am, my food like I am, the fact that our farming industry is gone, the fact that we've got issues with not just the climate, I don't believe he wrote that book.
Who is mental?
Was it Isaac, was it?
No, it was Moses Head.
Right.
A Rothschild man.
So they all belong to the same group. I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, you're talking about who's backed or fomented the Bolshevik revolution.
Apparently Lenin was given a trainload of gold. He was told to go in, create havoc on behalf of the people we're talking about now. The important thing is, you brought that up, you then have to look at the First World War. Was that a conceived plan from decades previous? And then the Second World War.
Who was involved in both?
I know, but I can't say here right now.
What, Winston Churchill?
Well, it's
Not
just him.
Oh no, but he was instrumental in both.
He was used just like Adolf Hitler. Of course. But when you look at who really is, this is a frightening thing. When you look at who really is, when your mind opens up and the light comes on, and you realise really who is in charge and who created all that mass murder, the First World War, the Second World War, and all subsequent wars, and wars before the First World War.
And the Bolshevik Revolution
Absolutely.
killed 60 million old people.
It's the same group of people who are doing exactly the same.
And Mao Zedong went to Yale.
Yeah, absolutely. We're on the same wavelength here. But the beauty is, I never thought for 1 minute people thought like that.
Well,
But it's good to know now.
It's important.
It's good to know now that there are people who think like that.
I think we're growing in number.
Absolutely. I mean, I see comments now. I talk to people now. I mean, like yourself today. I would never have thought for 1 minute I would have had this conversation today. But I've got to be careful what I say. But yeah, so that was his role, to go in and create a solution that, look what happened. Yeah, it goes.
Just in case some people turn up down there, which they might not. Who knows?
Well, that was Clive, critical thinking at Hyde Park Corner. Thank you, sir. This is Clive. Critical thinking. Oh, we'll let you continue.
As I said, it's resetting.
This is
Technology.
gold to me.
To do what?
Transhumanism and basically, I mean, the long-term aim is for the few to rule the many, and the many be so debilitated that they have no capacity or even understanding to fight back.
If I said to you, I've got the technology so that you can live forever, would you take it?
No.
But there are people who would.
But, and that comes down to our severance from the spiritual, because I will live forever, but not in this body.
And that's the plan. That's the end game.
That is God's job, not technology's job.
Remember who these people were.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
They don't care about the community.
yeah,
They
exactly.
care about themselves and living forever. That is the ultimate. It tells you that in the Bible.
Yeah, but you have to. There comes a point where you have to worry less about what's going on externally, and it's down to you. Because if you don't understand why you're here, what your role in life is, then all the campaigning and activism will change nothing. You have to change.
My role in
yourself.
life is to come and talk to people like you, and then I go and talk to somebody else who's like-minded. And if I just pass on one little gem to somebody else, that's how it filters through. And I know this to be the case because I mention little things to people, and it's gone all the way around and it's come back to me. And it's impossible for someone else to have said that. I've said that, and it's gone round and come. That's the real virus. It's the real
Truth is
virus.
so much stronger than life.
And just show that for the camera. Show that for the camera, please, my friend. Just a card for the camera.
George, are you coming?
Yes, we're off. Thank you, Clive.
Terrified of being fined or ostracised, socially cast out, and the biggest fear that seems to energise most people is fear of death. So they started off with terrorism, and people got bored with that because they realised that they weren't going to be victims of terrorism. So then they get climate change, and people are getting bored with that because we're heading into a little ice age, although most people don't know that. And then we had the induced mass migration in 2015 where they dropped all the borders. So all those migrants who were refugees from wars and the political economy that killed off their homeland, we use as weapons into Europe and America to create more tension and division. And this COVID is effectively phase 4 of what has been World War III since 2001. It started with the Twin Towers, and that's just progressively ratcheted up the pressure on the population, taking away more and more of their freedom. And most people, because it's complex and there are lots of competing dialogues and layers, then people just give up and say, well, I'll just do as I'm told. But I think more and more people are beginning to question the sanity. Monday's regulations are, if you're in a social group of more than 6, you're at higher risk than going to work in hundreds or thousands, going to school, going to wherever. So, what is it about a social event that makes you more vulnerable? I mean, people are waking up to the contradictory nature, and most are still too frightened to question authority. But I think the demonstration on the 29th of August actually showed that there are a lot more people out there than we realise who are prepared to flout criminal authority, because according to the regulations we shouldn't have been there on that day, and yet we were. People were happy, they were friendly. The speakers weren't that important. It was having the energy of something like 10,000 people collectively saying, no, we don't believe this. And that's really what this is all about. This is a war of centralised power versus people and decentralised power. And the key to unlocking that is the monetary system, because that's how they control everyone. By rationing money, we have to wear masks, do all the things that they say in order to go into a shop to get food or to get money. So money is the key to everything. But what is happening, which most people don't realise, is that money is already being challenged by things like bitcoins, cryptocurrencies, alternative currencies, and these ideas are beginning to take hold. And it's probably far more advanced in financial circles. I would say you've got quite a sort of polarisation, because I work in finance. You've got most people who sort of succumb to the day-to-day propaganda, who didn't foresee this. We were anticipating this collapse months ago, and it's going to get a lot worse. But there are sections of the finance community who are working on decentralised currencies and the like, who are actually driving change. And what it takes is people like us who are concerned about the geopolitical dimension to actually try and understand what they're doing. Because if we decentralise money, all of this authority disappears. They have no power. They only have power because we believe they have power. Whereas if we create our own money, our own food systems, our own education systems, our own media, then it's game over for the system. And that's why they're panicking and trying so hard at the moment to close this down. And I would say they're overreaching themselves. I think that I think they planned it. I mean, it goes back to a Rockefeller document produced in 2010. There's a section called Lockstock which explains this. They rehearsed it on October the 18th in 2018, Event 201 in New York, with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and John Hopkins University. And the World Economic Forum has had a fully developed website, 200 layers deep, covering every aspect of global society. And that was released at least in March, if not before. So if this wasn't planned for these circles anyway.
Have you got anyone in Parliament who thinks like you?
No, Parliament is another criminal organisation.
Really?
Every hierarchy is criminal.
And the police?
It's all controlled by money. So we have to create a new money system.
So basically everybody at the top in these systems disagree with what you're saying?
They might well know, but they can't do anything about it. I would guess most of them don't know, because the way, have you heard of Adam Rice?
Yeah.
Well, his tech more on the other card.
Yeah, I'm going to come and see what happens.
Is Aaron coming?
Nice.